Clarity. That's what a lot of Phoenix Suns fans were hoping for this offseason, and they don't have any yet. Why is James Jones still leading the Phoenix Suns coaching search? It's Erik and Stephen PridGeon-Garner doing a little trending mini pod here for PHNX Suns. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rate us 5 stars wherever you happen to be listening. If you're wondering why we're talking about this, well, DLLS's Marc Stein hopped on Southwest Bias with Espo and gave a little update on what's going on in the Suns front office.
James Jones, his contract runs through the end of June. Is James Jones definitely out? I don't think people are saying that. I don't think there's clarity there. I mean, the reality is, I think to this point, James Jones has been the point man for the Suns coaching search to this point. Now, Mat Ishbia was very open in his press conference that the Suns are not looking to make a rapid hire on the coaching side. The belief, I would term it in league circles, is that there is going to be some sort of front office change before the coaching move is made. But when I wrote the piece with Jake on Wednesday, we didn't have clarity. There isn't clarity about, is James Jones going to work alongside whoever is new in that front office? Is there going to be an outright change? I think people are still trying to get a handle on that.
Steven, is that concerning to hear for you?
No, it's honestly not. I feel like, how else was this supposed to go? That season ended extremely early. He's still under contract until sometime during the summer. He's the one person that makes the most sense to kind of spearhead this kind of, this approach that they have to the offseason. Like, who else is better suited to do it than James?
I guess it would be the person they hire as far as the changes go. I think, am I concerned about this right now? I would say no. But as much as I want them to flush out and take their time on everything, including not just the head coaching search, but the GM search as well, or whatever change in the front office, I do think if you're going to hire somebody that supersedes James Jones, then you need that person in as soon as possible to then start to flush out your head coaching search, because you can't assume that whoever's coming in is going to agree with what James Jones has searched and who has been a part of the committee that's hired the last couple of Suns head coaches.
Yeah, that's definitely relevant. I guess I've always kind of been looking forward under the mindset that James Jones is going to be around. I know everybody was calling for his job. I was calling for just kind of a switch and roll more than anything. And it seems like more than anything else, that's more than likely what's going to happen. It's not like he's going to be completely detached from the franchise like a lot of fans want. He's just going to be repositioned in a different role and maybe have different tasks, but still obviously get his attention to detail as far as the game and assessing rosters and his connections and networking, still get those assets. So that's because I've been operating from that mindset. I feel like this makes just entirely too much sense.
Do you feel like it could be almost busy work, or keep yourself going while we hire somebody to come in and really lead the charge? But you could put together a list of names. You could do a little research on what's going on out there. Or do you feel like even in this revamped, changed front office that we have no idea how it's actually going to change, James Jones's voice will be significant enough that whatever work he's doing now will influence whoever actually is the Suns' next head coach?
It's a whole lot more the latter than the former for me, because the latter aligns with what I just got done speaking to, a different role for him. Again, it just feels like they value his I guess skill set that he brings to the front office dynamics, and obviously they taking into account the successes and the failures. And it feels like the failures might be why they feel like they should be repositioning him. But the successes feel like they don't want to necessarily completely detach themselves from him. So it's kind of a catch-22 in a sense. He's kind of in limbo, but it feels like they're very much confident in him still being around, again, just in a different role.
It's definitely a weird spot to be in. I'm trying not to overreact because I do have that side of my brain that is, hey, man, it's not even May yet. And this team's season has been over for a while, right? And even before that, it's felt like it's been over. And according to James Jones and Mat Ishbia, they had lost faith in Mike Budenholzer back in like January, right? So understanding that this process and everything has been sped up a lot faster than a lot of people expected, it's understandable that there's no GM that's come in yet. And if it is, let's say like a Bob Myers, right? Or a first-time GM that's going to come in and take the reins or step in as president of basketball operations. Again, like Marc Stein said, none of it's clear as far as to what exactly is going to happen. That contract is probably going to take a while to negotiate, whether it's Myers leaving ESPN, fully committing to the Suns, or a first-time GM wanting to make sure that they're being set up in the right position to take care of themselves, stepping into a rather volatile situation with what the Phoenix Suns are staring down the barrel of this summer. So it's not a surprise per se that they don't have somebody there, but the other side of me is worried that you're not prepared for these changes. And if you're going to keep on relying on James Jones now and you don't have the successor lined up now, you're then pushing your whole timeline back by weeks to then when are you going to hire a head coach? And then beyond that, what are you going to do with the trade market, with Bradley Beal, with Kevin Durant, with the second apron? What's going to be your approach going forward? I can't tell if it's the panic inside of me of coming off of this awful season and wanting to get back on track as fast as possible, or if it's a realistic worry of what the hell are we doing here? Why is this guy still in charge in any capacity?
It's a balance. There's obviously urgency to get things aligned so that they can move as organized as possible because they have so much more than just the head coach to deal with this offseason. But there's also a balance of can't move too quick because some of the options that they might have on the table might still be tending to their current obligations, being their teams actually being successful and being in the playoffs this season. So there's a balance there. I definitely understand where you're coming from. I would like to have seen them like stamp things potentially today. Or by the time this actual podcast goes up, that would be a little bit more reassuring. But I understand that these things take time, especially if they're going to not repeat the mistakes and missteps that they had the past couple of years now. If they're trying to go forward and not look back on mistakes and look back on success points, they want to be as diligent with that as possible. And I have confidence in that. I believe in trusting that process and being detail oriented with it versus making rushed decisions.
I mean, I trust if you're going to choose, right, being rushed or being detail oriented. Look at the last couple hires of head coach and them saying that they rushed that process, just signed whatever former championship winning head coach was available. So of course I'm going to go with the other, which is detail oriented, right? But it's hard to have faith in this current iteration of the Suns to make that right decision until we see them make it, and then we see it play out. At what point, Steven, does this current situation become unacceptable? I know you're preaching patience, and I know you expect James Jones to be retained in some sort of capacity. At what point do you hit a moment where you're like, okay, this isn't okay anymore. A decision has to be made. We can't just be in limbo here.
Timeline wise, this is basically the beginning of May now. The draft pre-draft is in 2 weeks. The actual draft is in late June. They have time. Like looking at the calendar, I know things are, we want it now, but they have a little bit more time than we're kind of giving them. And because of that, I'll probably say sometime in by the end of the finals. I'll say by the end of the finals.
So that's missing pre-draft stuff though.
Yes.
That doesn't concern you?
No, it doesn't concern me because I still don't feel like they're going to actually use those picks to bring in talent.
Well, maybe, but you're also looking at Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro and how big of a part they were for that team. And maybe this is a whole different separate pot of do you use the picks or do you not use the picks, but how key and integral those guys were. Maybe there is a lot of trust in James Jones and the scouting department in that end, and they don't feel like they should get somebody in there. But from my perspective, whether you trade the picks or whether you use the picks, you still need to kind of determine what you're able to get with those, whether it's current value or future value with players in the NBA or college players. And I want the GM or the decision maker, however that's vaguely going to be labeled, that's going to be leading this next iteration of Suns basketball to make that decision. Right? And even if it ends up being a bad one, I'd rather it be aligned with the vision that we want. And of course, I don't want a bad decision, but don't want to rush it. You have time, but there are important things into rebuilding your team that are coming up in a matter of weeks, right? And weeks might feel like a long time, but they're going to go by like that. And so for me, before we get into real draft season, we're about 2 months away from the draft. I would say within the next 2 weeks, I want a decision. Right. I want to know what the hierarchy of this front office is. I want to know what the plan is going forward. And then they can decide what to do with the pick. They can decide how they want to scout and how they want to attack this offseason with Beal, Durant, Royce, Grayson, all of the above, who the next head coach is. I need to see that in the next 2 weeks, or else we'll be back here and I'll be in a lot more of a heightened, panicked state.
So, question for you, though. Do you feel like they're going to be prioritizing the draft over figuring out what to do with Beal, Durant, et cetera, Grayson, Royce, et cetera, and assessing what they might potentially have to spend on free agents?
I would say no, they wouldn't prioritize that over, but it's still a part of how you're going to be building your team for the future. So maybe it's less important than that, but still all the reason to have somebody here early so they can juggle all those different balls at once.
But do you feel, and I asked because we've heard Matt and James both independently and together say basically F them kids. We're not thinking about the 8th grader that's top 5 in the nation and bring him into the Suns like we're thinking about now. With that mindset, do you feel like that's something that they're going to really be trying to find a GM that's looking to build through the draft, or finding a GM that's going to be looking to use whatever draft capital they have and they're able to add via potential trades to improve the roster now in the retool sense?
I would say it's the latter, what you would lean towards, but if there's anything that we've learned is you have to strike a balance, right? And again, if you didn't strike that balance this year, if you told me a year ago going into the draft, what are the Suns going to do? You'd be asking me the same question with the same context, rightfully so. But a year later, who were 2 of the most important pieces of this Suns team this year?
For sure. It was the 2 rookies.
And
but
so
the issue, I think,
you can't get somebody who's going to only focus on one. You need one that can focus on both, and I think they need a runway to be able to do that.
For sure. I definitely respect that. It's just, for me, my rebuttal would be, though, if the roster was constructed well, would those 2 have been dependent on the way that they were needed this past season?
Not the way they were needed, but would you? And let's have a question off.
Yeah.
Do you think that Ryan Dunn would still not have a place if the roster was?
For sure.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, even if it's just one, obviously nobody wanted the rookies to be as important as they were this last season because it means it went how it went. But that doesn't mean that when you look at some of like the best teams and some of the top teams, it's a mixture of veteran talent and young infused talent. I feel like really the only exception to that is mainly Boston, whose entire core is built up of veterans, but they're such a unique situation. If you look at OKC, Houston, even Cleveland, right? It's their draft picks over the last couple of years, along with respected, recently acquired high-level veterans as well. So I don't want to go all in on one. And I think when you're talking about retooling, even if it's not a rebuild, part of that's the draft. And even if you're right, they're going to be focusing on trading the picks. I want the GM here so that he can figure out what the hell he's going to do with those picks and who he's going to attach them to or for there. So my 2-week timeline of pre-draft isn't just for the draft, but also for everything that's going to be surrounding with it, because you don't want to rush the head coaching hire,
for sure,
but you also want to know what head coach is going to be leading the roster that you're going to construct. And if you're not going to hire a head coach until you hire a GM, and you're not going to figure out your draft and your free agency moves until you hire a coach, we're talking weeks beyond the weeks that it takes for this guy to get hired for his actual plan and method to come into effect. So I think there's a lot on the table there. I would say I'm not concerned and panicked right now, but my radar is on. Like, I'm monitoring this, and I'm worried about what it could possibly turn out to be.
Yeah. I would just say, though, I'm preaching patience, but I'm looking at things through a lens of urgency, because you don't have forever. You have more time than fans are given, but you also don't have an eternity of time either. And you also don't want opportunities to pass by while you're in limbo too. So
that's part of it. A lot of other GMs getting let go as well.
For sure. And that's why I'm just preaching the patience part, but the balance part too, because it's not just, oh, take your time, you got forever. Definitely don't have that. And after the season that you had, you shouldn't be moving like that anyway. But at the same time, I know that they're not just going to make it happen as soon as possible now, like as in today or tomorrow, just to, go forward and say, okay, we got that part done, checking off boxes. Want to do it thoroughly and diligently.
Well, Steven, I always appreciate hearing what you think. If you want to hear more from us, plus Gerald and more, head over to PHNX Suns right here on PHNX Sports or on the audio feed that you're listening to. If you're listening to this when it first comes out, we'll be diving into Bradley Beal trades on our live show, 3 p.m. on PHNX Sports, and of course, delivered in your audio feed right after that. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have so much more coverage coming for you this entire offseason. We're almost at 40,000 subscribers here on PHNX Sports. So leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, help us get to 40K, and help us figure out what the hell the Suns are going to do this summer. Are you worried about what's going on with James Jones? Let us know, and we'll talk to you soon.